welcome to Bello and Chinetto. I'm Christina, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. If you're new, welcome in. If you're returning, welcome back. No matter how long you've been here, I always appreciate your time. I am so excited to share something with you today. I got a new book, if you can't tell from the title. But before I show you the book, I'm going to tell you a little bit. I've got it right here. I'm looking at it. Before I show it to you, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I got it, right? So, as many people on YouTube do, we watch other YouTubers. I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't even really watch a lot of YouTube. So, sometimes things will pop up in my feed and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then I'll hit to the add to watch later list or something like that. And then when I have time, I go through and I'll watch several videos. Sometimes I will let things play while I'm doing things like meal prepping or laundry or something like that. And I'll just have it running. And then I'm listening to it, but I'm not always like staring at it. And then I'll go back and like give a thumbs up or comment or something like that. That's just how my life works, right? And for those of you that don't know, TV has never really been a big love of mine. Growing up, I was very much a reader. I would have my radio on, I would be listening to music, I'd be reading books, and TV was a punishment for me growing up. I know, that's crazy for most kids. Oh yeah, you want to watch TV all the time. And even my own kids, like when I tell them, they still don't believe me. And my mom has said to both of my children, like she's told both of my children that that was my punishment. And more than anything, it wasn't really the TV that was my punishment. It was sitting in the living room with everyone else, right? Being pulled out of my sanctuary, so to speak. It was, in the end, a very inventive punishment by my mother, because typically when you are punishing your children, you take away something that they love dearly. I loved my solitude. I loved my books. I loved my isolation. And my mom, I mean, she didn't take away books for like knowledge purposes. Like if I had homework, well then obviously. But there would be times where she would just like take the cord to my stereo. Okay, well, there goes that. But because of that, I don't really watch a lot of TV. It has to be something that really just like grabs my interest. And then I might binge watch something for a couple of days when I have free time, and then I won't watch TV again for another several months. And the same thing with YouTube. I will watch things periodically, but I'm usually always listening to them. Because more often than not, I'm crocheting and listening to an audiobook or something like that. So, anyway, this particular video, all of that to say, there's a purpose for all of that. There's a purpose for that story. All of that to say, I was listening to some YouTube videos not too long ago, probably about 2 weeks ago maybe, and it was just my watch later list. So I was just everything that I had saved to my watch later list. I just hit play from the last video that I had watched and was listening, and Elise Rose came on. If you don't know Elise Rose, she's a much bigger channel than I am. She used to be La Petite Saint Crochet, and then she changed her name to Elise Rose. And she went into a whole video about why she did that and all those things. But I've been following her channel even when she was the channel name before. And she was talking about this book, and it made me stop what I was doing, go over and actually look at my phone to see what she was talking about. And it was this book right here, Literary Yarns. The video that she did was all about like book lovers crochet, and there were some really amazing things that she shared in that video. And There's definitely some like Grafghan patterns and things like that because I saved that video. I'm going back and I'm gonna like look in her description box and see some of the things that she posted, some of the links and different things. Because, as I've said, right, books were and still are my first love, and I could not be happier to now have this book. So I thought we'd do a book look. This is Literary Yarns, Crochet Projects Inspired by Classic Books. And it did not come in a paperback, so it was a little bit more expensive because it was a hardcover book, but that's completely fine. So this is the table of contents, and it tells you everyone that is in the book. Oh, I can't. I'll let you take a look at that. And I like how, right, it says plotting it out. So like you're taking things from a book and putting it into crochet. That was one of the things that I enjoyed being pointed out. So I have shared my love of Jane Austen before, but Elizabeth Bennet, I actually have right here. This is a tattoo. It says "Obstinate, Headstrong Girl," and I actually have a bag over there with the like cameo outline. It's like a black bag, and it's filled in with like a cream color cameo, and it says the same quote, and that is what Elizabeth Bennet is called in the book, because she won't listen, and that's all I'm gonna say. If you've never read it, well then, that's fine. And then, of course, we have The Wizard of Oz, and she actually has on, can't really see, but oh, she actually has on the silver shoes. And this is just materials, so I'm not showing any of the pattern, but she actually has on the silver shoes, which if you've read the series, now some of you may also not know, because I've said this a couple of times on videos and people were like, I had no idea. The Oz series is actually, it's 12 books. There's a long storyline for Oz, and I was enamored of it growing up. Read the whole thing. I have the whole thing. My original collection, and then I found a boxed set of the collection later. So again, Oz is very important to me, right? And again, with the silver shoes. Oh, you can't see the books in front. The silver shoes, because in the book they are silver. They were only made the ruby red color because The Wizard of Oz was one of the first movies that was in Technicolor. So when they were making the movie, they wanted to have something that really popped. So the ruby red slippers became ruby red instead of the silver shoes that they were. Okay. So this has stuff for all of the characters, which I love. Of course, I'm not going to show you all of that. And then the rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. This is going to be not the rabbit itself, but there will be another tattoo forthcoming at some point with Alice-inspired items. And then Sherlock Holmes. I was never a big mystery reader growing up, but I did like Sherlock Holmes, and I did like when I was younger, like really young, I would read things like Hardy Boys and things like that, but Sherlock Holmes was interesting to me because it was more of a puzzle. So it wasn't like, oh, somebody died, find the murderer. It was like all these clues and all these pieces, and it was never simple. right? It's like, oh no, this has to be the murderer. This has to be. There was always a twist. There was always a turn. There was always like a, oh wow, I never would have seen that coming. And it may not have been to who the murderer was, but it could have been a piece of solving the crime. So that was always interesting for me. And then this one's kind of hard to see, but there is Ebenezer Scrooge, which the picture is really, it's not a bad picture, but I can tell just from all of the white and the lighting in my room that it's going to be hard to see. So I'm not going to show you that one. And then this one, because I've taught this book numerous times, and I actually have read quite a bit about the author's wife. This is The Great Gatsby. So F. Scott Fitzgerald and his wife, Z. This is from the Scarlet Letter. This is Hester Prynne. I've taught this to many an 11th grader in English class. So that was always interesting. This is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Again, it's kind of hard to see. I'll show you the picture, but it's really, really difficult to see the characters just because of they have this bright, beautiful window, but then they have this dark background here, so it makes, especially Esmeralda, difficult to see. I read this book twice. Hugo was not a big, I was not a big fan of Hugo, but I read it a couple of times. Herman Melville, right, with Moby Dick. So you have Captain Ahab, and then, of course, the whale. Interestingly enough, this book, Moby Dick, came up more times in grammar classes that I took in college than it did in literature classes. Especially the first line, call me Ishmael, right? Where you have that implied you. You call me Ishmael. So trying to structure that sentence and understand the structure of that sentence in order to teach it, right? And lots of sentences in Melville's writing would come up in some of the grammar classes that I took to be an English teacher. So it's always, I know I'm a nerd. I know. It's okay. I've accepted it. I'm good with it. So Anne of Green Gables is something else that I grew up reading. I think the last time that I actually I think that was probably 12 the last time that I read Anne of Green Gables, but I was 7. I was 7 the first time I picked up the book. And then all of the things to come, right? And then we go on. Again, many a story has been taught to my 9th graders. George Orwell's Animal Farm. There is Napoleon. If you are not familiar with Animal Farm, it is an interesting tale. But that's all I'm going to say. Napoleon is definitely a character to be reckoned with. And my love of Shakespeare comes in with Hamlet. This is not my favorite Shakespeare play, but I do love the tragedy of the story. And I do like the skull that he's holding there, right? That's the to be or not to be scene where he has his monologue. But the first time I read Shakespeare was about the same time that I read Edgar Allan Poe, to be honest. I was 9. And I had gone to see my grandparents in New Jersey, and my grandfather would let me have whatever book I wanted because I was willing to read, right? So my mom would never buy me big, big volumes because she's like, you're never going to read that. You're never going to read that. I would have read it, but I also know now that it was expensive, right? Books are expensive, and to buy the complete works of someone's, you know, writing is expensive. So, um, excuse me, my grandfather bought me the complete works of Edgar Allan Poe and the complete works of Shakespeare when I was 9, the first time I went to go visit. It was definitely hard hauling them back, but I did have the best time reading those and absorbing them. And even as I got older and then I started teaching them, right, it became something different every time, right? A new aspect, a new question, a new thought. Um, Sadly, my room was damaged growing up by an ice storm, and so I lost the complete works of Shakespeare. I do still have the complete works of Edgar Allan Poe. Miraculously, that survived, and it is a paperback book, and the Shakespeare one was a hardback book. But I think it was where it was sitting, right when the tree fell into my room, that things got damaged, and then they had to sit for a while because they couldn't clean it up. So then everything got molded, and it was a whole big thing. But again, et tu, Brute, Julius Caesar. I've taught this to many of a 10th grade English class. But I do still even put things online for the Ides of March. And just recently, actually, my son sent me a reel on Instagram. And this guy was like, oh, what dressing are we having? And he picks up the bottle and turns it around, and there's a knife in it. And he's like, oh, Caesar. It still makes me giggle. But it is a good one. And then we just have a couple more here. We have Frankenstein's Monster. And it is Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein was the doctor. I know a lot of people just now call him Frankenstein, but he was not. I have taught this to some 12th graders for English class, and it's an interesting frame story where it's a story within a story within a story, which is really cool to like parse all of that out. And how it all comes back outwards, because you start and then you go in and then you go in and then you have to come back out. So it's lovely. I also, in college, so Mary Shelley was the writer of Frankenstein, but her mother, Mary Wollstonecraft, was a big advocate for women's rights. And in my writings about Jane Austen in college, I wrote about how there were definitely some moments of fighting for women's rights and kind of mocking the way that things were during that time. So I studied Mary Wollstonecraft's work quite extensively as well. So then this one, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I'm not going to show you. I showed you it was at the beginning of the table of contents, but this picture is also really difficult to see. And then so I was looking at, they have this little, I can't show it to you because of the pattern, but they have this little stick, I think, that goes, you crochet around. I'm going to have to look in the book and see what that is. And then this is the final one. Huckleberry Finn. I've actually been going through excerpts of this with some 5th graders recently. So it is all here. This is such a cool little book, and I'm glad that I got to share it with you, and I'm glad I got to share some of my love of literature with you all as well. And I could not be more thrilled that, of course, Miss Cindy Wang, right? She's the creator here, created this book, or that Elise shared it with everyone, because I am just, I'm so excited to have it, right? It is something that I am going to enjoy, and I am going to be doing a label my library on it soon, and then hopefully in the coming year, I was going to say in the next year, but in the new year, I will be able to make a couple of things out of it. I really want to finish some of the things that I've been working on. I have two blankets, right? I still have the wavy waffle blanket, and I have the fairy dust, but then I also have the stag and serpent um, crochet-a-long that I'm working on, and I still have my sweater, my cardigan. So I'm still working on lots of things, but I want to get something done before I start something else. Now I have done a couple of small things. I did make a couple of washcloths recently, and a couple of like hot pads or pot holders, um, just because somebody was asking me for something and I needed to um, get them done, and it didn't take me very long to make them, so I thought, why not just knock it out, right? So, um, hopefully you'll see more of this coming very soon. So with that, I will leave you. I hope that you've enjoyed this, and as always, be well, be safe, and be the change you wish to see in the world, everyone. Ciao, bella.